So today's video is going to be how I had a Charlotte Mason education. So stay tuned, I want to tell you all about it. Hi everybody, welcome back. This is another Charlotte Mason video in my mini-series, kind of a Charlotte Mason education for beginners. I'll be honest, I've kind of had a meltdown this last week with why everything isn't going perfectly or as beautifully as I would like it to be. You know, am I really doing this? Are we doing enough poetry? Are we doing enough everything? Are we doing enough reading? Are we doing enough retention? It all boils down to that. And the more I was thinking about it, the more I went back to my roots and how I had a Charlotte Mason education. I don't think I ever heard that term used when somebody asked my mother, well, how do you teach? I don't think she would have said, I'm classical, I am fun schooling, I am free range, I am whatever. She's like, I teach them. But if you look at the lifestyle of my education, it would have been a Charlotte Mason. We didn't have Shakespeare studies, but I was exposed to a lot of Shakespeare. I watched a lot of the movies that were put out by Shakespeare. The Shakespeare books were always at my disposal. I'm not saying I picked it up, but I did have to read Spenser's Faerie Queen in high school, which for me would have been like a lot of these children who have to read Shakespeare. Blech. But, and my mom had us memorize scripture through the King James Version, because if you could memorize that, the thee, the thou, and all of those, it's easier to retain things. And then you could go on to memorizing Shakespeare. And I have to say, in college, a lot of my siblings, when they go into English 102, I believe it is, where you go into the Shakespeare language and you're doing all of these, or maybe that's their honors class. That might be the honors class, which most of my siblings have taken anyways. They do a lot of Shakespeare, and we had a basic knowledge of it. We saw the, oh my goodness, that famous actress, I can't even remember. It's not Katharine Hepburn. No, this actress, okay. Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor. I saw Taming of the Shrew as a kid. It was one of my favorites. I can still quote Shakespeare because of that movie. Much Ado About Nothing. Mom wasn't so keen on Romeo and Juliet. She's like, you have two teenagers that throw a temper tantrum and nothing. So I didn't get a lot of Romeo and Juliet growing up. But I could tell if I heard a quote that it was from Romeo and Juliet. So that's how I was exposed to Shakespeare. For folk music, I grew up listening to, not so much Johnny Cash, but when people will relate to, if I say old music, they relate to Johnny Cash. But even further back, I would grow up listening to the Ames Brothers and Joe Stafford and some Patsy Cline and Roger Miller, and I would dance around the living room, skirts flying everywhere, to just different pieces of music like that. Brothers 4 happened to be my favorite. And I was exposed to all that. I was exposed to hymn studies. I remember my mom doing a whole Isaac Watts study one time. We did copy work by writing Bible passages growing up. I remember doing 1st and 2nd Corinthians in a notebook. I believe I still have that. Anytime we were writing, we would ask Mom how to spell something, and we would write it correctly. We read a lot, and our play was based off of what we read. So a lot of times I would play that my swing set was a covered wagon, and I was traveling through the Wild West. And the cool soldiers that I didn't get to fight with, I would go and fight with them in my backyard, digging trenches and all that stuff. Not a big deal. I believe I played What Katie Did one time too in my tree. I remember falling out of the tree, like deliberately trying to fall out in such a way so I could play What Katie Did. The things we do in childhood. So I would say I had a enriching and living education that way. A lot of the handicrafts that I did were, well, I have to say I was more the seamstress. I sewed more than my sister did, and we kind of had this pact where when I got married, she would do all my cooking and I would do all of her sewing. That way I didn't have to do a lot of the cooking. But I kind of grew up on that one really quickly and realized I have to do a lot of the cooking in our own household. Our education was with the textbooks that we had of those days. It's definitely much more than much more now than it was then. But we had an enriching life. It wasn't filled with day-to-day school that you had to spend all day doing. And that's something that I'm trying to remember now in educating my children, is that educating my children isn't necessarily the... Oh, I had a perfect way to say it earlier. Now I can't bring it to my tongue. But your day-to-day learning isn't just in the sitting down moments with the book. It's also living out what you're learning. I was outdoors a lot as a child. I need to get back to doing that. But I had a paper route. I learned very quickly how to do living math because somebody's like, okay, it's, this amount, I'm going to give you this much tip. Here's this amount. And you have to think quickly how much to give back. And sometimes the tip amounts are very odd. So it wasn't just easy skills or, here's $5, I'm giving you $10, make change with that. And then I got to go to do dance class, which is actually, I did that for so many years, and I met my husband there. So that was pretty neat. I did Scottish balls where we would dress up as, in our ball dresses, and then I would go, and the dances that you see in like Pride and Prejudice, I did that. I got to go to balls, and we would line up and we would dance those things, and it was very fun. It was very enriching for me. I had a sibling that would drive me crazy, but she would always be found with a book. And of course we're like, come on, get your nose out of a book, go do this. But that was her. She enjoyed the books, and you know what? She's got her PhD in English and something else because she's now teaching disabled children or mental disability children. So she was not only schooled for an English professor education, but also had to go and do the other special education for these other kids. So I guess all that book reading paid off. But that was her, and that's how she had her education. So for us, it wasn't necessarily labeled with, okay, we're going on a nature walk and I want you to draw the bird. Growing up, I always had a fascination for butterflies and pansies. Those were my favorite, and they're still my favorite. And I remember drawing an orange butterfly on a pansy for the fairgrounds one year. I entered an apple pie one year. I sewed a quilt. I sewed a couple quilts when for citizenship, if you will, for our Plutarch, we did Uncle Eric, and that's actually going to be another video that I'm going to talk about later on. But that was more in high school, but I enjoyed those. I really enjoyed the history of economics, and what I consider economics would have been that. It's when I went to college last year and was like, oh, an economic class, I'm going to totally take that. Yeah, it wasn't exactly what I thought. And I kind of dropped out of that class pretty quickly because I just couldn't make it work. But my mom wouldn't have said, okay, we're going to do the, that's what I was trying to say. My mom would have said, okay, we're going to go do nature study. You're going to do composer study. You're going to go do art lessons. You're going to go do this, this, and that. She just kind of let it be an open book for us to go and peek at. The supplies were there. If we had an interest, then she would feed that interest. But it was kind of like a refrigerator. The refrigerator is full of food, but your child opens it and it thinks a little bit for a minute about what it wants. That's the education that my mom presented for us. And so I was more interested in the handicrafts of the education. And so my mom, sewing, created that atmosphere for me. I don't believe I ever saw her do counted cross stitch. But when I had the opportunity to do one and I really enjoyed it and wanted more, then she created more opportunities for me. Bless her heart, I probably wasted so much money of hers, because one thing that I don't think I really got a good education in, Mom, I'm not pointing a finger at you, was consistency. That is not my strong point. So I didn't often finish projects. That, if there's one thing I could go back in my childhood and just do and get myself to get done, would be to finish projects. Interestingly enough, that's kind of a weakness of my mother's as well. So, how do you teach what you're weak in, right? Is that offensive, Mom? You'd have to know my mom. She won't find that offensive. She'll be like, yep, so what are we going to do to change it? But, moving on, those moral habits were still there. The moral habits aren't going to be completed the second the child turns 18. Those moral habits, you can fall out of habits. Isn't that a saying, falling out of habit? You can fall out of habit, or there's just habits that you never completed. Our habits were hardworking, diligence. Consistency and diligence are not the same thing, by the way. Diligence. People wanted our family to work for them. That is one thing that I can say. People loved us because we work hard, we get the job done, and we'll do it right. Or we'll stay there until the job is done to what you want. I'm saying that not as a kind of fingers in my suspension, but that was something Mom made sure that we did. And so we had those habits. And it's interesting, we're in a town of 30,000 people, which for us is small. I consider it a small town. Our family is known as, hey, your sister worked here. Oh, your brother worked over here. Oh, you're the sister to such and such and such, because we have those connections around because we were hard workers. There's many other habits, okay? And we all are strong in different areas. So my brother is very, he's academic too. Artistic is the word I was going for. And he is becoming known for his, computer graphics design type of things. And those are things that, if you sat down and said, okay, I want you to draw a face, you can't draw it and say, I'm going to be a computer graphics designer. But it was this evolution of time as he grew older and got better and started finding his niche, that word, and whatever he wanted, his handicraft was building along with that. And so I had that enriching childhood. The nature walks wouldn't have necessarily been going outside and trying to find stuff to draw. The Plutarch wouldn't have been sitting down with the Plutarch talking about citizenship and Roman lives, etc. Music appreciation wouldn't have been listening to classical music and discussing different composers. Dictation wouldn't have been, I'm going to give you this to write out, and I'm going to make sure that as you're writing, your spelling errors are being corrected. It wasn't like that in a Charlotte Mason thing. It was just our life. It was those moments that, as I'm teaching my children and looking at a Charlotte Mason education and wanting to give them this, I'm like, wow, I had it. And I think it turned out okay. Please do not comment below if you think otherwise. I may not be able to handle that this week. Tell me in a couple weeks. I think I had a great childhood, and I am not, let me put it this way, I am not the smartest in my family. But a Charlotte Mason education isn't just to produce smart kids. It's to give a child an enriching life. A Charlotte Mason education isn't about raising a smart generation. It's about enriching that child and helping that child become who he or she is going to be. I have smart siblings that are making a huge difference in the world. Not in a president kind of way, but I have siblings that are going to go and work with criminals and try to get them on a great path. So they're not going back to prison. They want to change the world in that way. I have one that wants to go into policies and change policies to make it possible for people to have better lives. I have siblings that are teaching children that have mental disabilities and that have a hard time being taught or have come from other countries and have been abused in many ways, and they're reaching out and helping them and teaching them. I have other siblings that have gone and just changed lives by being who they are. They're friends to the friendless, and they are a sweet soul that adults are just wanting to have a friendship with a teenager. They're changing lives in that way. So and by we, I mean me. I may not be academically smart. I'm not. Okay? I'm not saying that in humility or trying to look good. I'm not. I'm not an academic smart kid. That's not my strength. But it is for my siblings who have gone and far surpassed an education that I could never get in the academic world, in the structured academic test-taking world, for lack of a better word. And isn't that what we want for our children? To help them grow and be the best that they will be? That is what Charlotte Mason was trying to do. Not trying to mold them. If I was trying to be molded into what my siblings are, I would have failed. I wouldn't be me. To try to mold my siblings into this homemaking wife and old-fashioned mother and homeschooling, that's not them. That's what Charlotte Mason was trying to tell us. To think about the whole child when they grow up and to help them become who they want to be. And that's what I got with my education. That's the education that I want to give my kids. It's that whole child perspective. It's that feast of ideas that they're going to glean from, and they're going to figure out what they want to do, who they want to be, and how they need to get there. Alright, this is going to be it for this video. I hope this encouraged somebody out there. It's not a step-by-step of what to do and how to do it, but how it looked like for me and why I believe I had a Charlotte Mason education. I will see you in my next video. Go ahead and check out some of the other videos that I made on Charlotte Mason. I encourage you to hit that subscribe button. We are nearing 1,000 subscribers. Never in my wild dreams did I ever think I would have reached this milestone. Ever. It's unbelievable. It's just humbling, Thank you so much. I can't wait to share something I think is pretty cool that I've been kind of preparing for my 1,000 subscriber celebration. So if you are new to the channel, just go ahead and subscribe. You can then see what I have in store, and I have some other videos coming up shortly that I can't wait to share with you. And until next time, thank you so much for watching, and be blessed. Bye.